everything prepared. We must leave immediately. The castle awaits.
Hold the line! Push them back to the gates! For the realm!
You know how we picture medieval princesses? The flowing gowns, the towers, the waiting around for some knight to show up and make everything wonderful. Maybe a dragon gets involved. Maybe there's a glass slipper situation. It's all very lovely and very much not what actually happened. The real story is messier, stranger, and honestly a lot more interesting than any fairy tale. Because real princesses weren't just sitting around looking pretty. They were surviving, scheming, sometimes fighting actual battles, sometimes gambling away fortunes, sometimes falling in love with exactly the wrong person and doing something about it. Anyway, tonight we're going to follow one of them, a princess named Joan, who was born during a crusade in a place called Acre, which is how she ended up being called Joan of Acre. She had 4 sisters, and each of them found their own way to navigate a world that treated them like property. Some of their stories are heartbreaking. Some are kind of hilarious. All of them are true. If you're new here, welcome. If these help you wind down at night, hit subscribe so you don't miss any. And I always like knowing where everyone's listening from. So drop your city and the time in the comments. It's weirdly comforting knowing there's people from all over settling in for the night at the same time or morning, depending on where you are. Alright, get comfortable and we'll get started. So imagine this. You wake up before dawn, your eyes open to almost complete darkness because medieval castles had tiny windows, like aggressively tiny. The reason? Big windows meant weak walls, and weak walls meant dead people. So, you're lying there in the dark, and the first thing you notice is the cold. Not like, oh, it's a bit chilly cold. We're talking about the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. The kind where you can see your breath even inside. The stone walls around you have never been truly warm. They can't be. Stone holds cold the same way it holds heat, and there's simply not enough heat to go around. Your bed has curtains around it, thick, heavy things, and you're grateful for them because they trap whatever warmth your body has made during the night. You've got furs piled on top of you, wool blankets beneath that, and still your nose is freezing. Now, the bed itself is actually pretty good as medieval beds go. You're a princess, after all. The mattress is stuffed with feathers rather than straw. There's a wooden frame holding everything up off the floor, which matters more than you'd think because the floor is covered in rushes and straw and, well, whatever else has ended up in there over the past few weeks. We'll get to that. Your servant has already placed a brass pan filled with heated rocks beneath your covers at some point during the night. They're cold now, obviously, but for a few hours they made a difference. Okay, so you're lying there in the darkness and you're maybe 7 years old or 8 or 9. It doesn't really matter because your life has already been planned out for you. Your marriage has been negotiated. Your future husband has been selected. The treaties have been drafted. The only thing everyone's waiting for is for you to get old enough to actually go through with it. And that age, by the way, was 12. 12 years old. That was considered old enough to be married off and shipped to whatever foreign court your father had decided you belonged to. Some girls were betrothed even younger. We're talking 5 or 6 years old, sitting through ceremonies where they're essentially being signed over to another family like a property deed with a pulse. But here's the really messed up part. Nobody thought this was strange. This was just how things worked. If you were lucky enough to be born a princess, you were also unlucky enough to be valuable. And valuable things get sold. That's the whole point of having value. The other thing nobody tells you about medieval mornings is the smell. I know. Everyone always talks about how bad the past smelled. But honestly, you need to understand just how aggressive this was. The rushes on the floor of the Great Hall haven't been changed in a while. They're supposed to be fragrant, mixed with herbs like lavender or mint to make things smell nice. But after a few weeks, what you've actually got is a layer of dried grass mixed with spilled food, spilled drink, spilled everything else. Dogs have been in there. Bones from last night's dinner are buried somewhere in there. The occasional rat has definitely died in there. And the people haven't bathed the way you're thinking. This was before anyone had figured out that regular bathing was actually a good idea. In fact, a lot of people thought bathing was dangerous, that it opened your pores to disease. So, the servants around you, the knights, the ladies, everyone, they're all carrying around the smell of weeks or months without a proper wash. They might splash some water on their face. They might use a scented cloth to wipe down occasionally, but that's about it. You get used to it. That's the thing. Your nose just kind of gives up after a while. It becomes normal background. So you're lying there in your bed, this 7 or 8 or 9-year-old girl, and your ladies are arriving to get you dressed for the day. And getting dressed is not a simple thing. We're not talking about throwing on some jeans and a t-shirt here. Getting dressed as a medieval princess takes 30 minutes minimum, sometimes an hour. First, there's the undergarment, a long linen shift that you've slept in.